I want to just do a quick little lesson. This will only take you, I don't know, between 5 and 15 minutes. But I want to prepare us for Friday. Once you're done this, you'll get right on to kind of that review over the last couple of worksheets that we've done, 8.2.1 through 8.2.4. And that'll help me and you to just figure out what you can or can't do or what you understand or don't understand. Use the people around you, use your worksheets, use the answers that I've provided over the last couple of days. So let me just quickly explain this idea of special reference angles. So reference angle, like an angle of 41, is a reference angle because it's acute, it's in quadrant 1. That angle can produce the same answers in 3 other quadrants as well. If you take 41 and subtract it from 180, you get 139. If you add it to 180, you get 221. If you subtract it from 360, you get 319. All of those angles produce the same number for sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, and so on. The only difference is sometimes you'd have positive and negative values, and that is what the cast rule was about. Now, we're sticking to that same idea, but we're now going to introduce what we call the special reference angles of 30, 45, and 60. Now, you'll recognize those because they come from the special right triangles. And you'll recognize this chart somewhat as to these values are basically sine, cosine, and tangent of those angles based on the sides that you already know something about, as to root 2 times bigger or root 3 times bigger and so on. And that's what these calculations are. So when I use an angle like 30, I can also use 150, 210, 330. And when I give the values for those, so cosine of 30 sits right here at root 3 over 2. Now cosine is negative in quadrant 2, and so, but I have the same number but negative. Cosine is negative in the 3rd quadrant, so it's negative here, but cosine is positive here. It's the same idea, but I'm using these values as the exact values. So what I want you to do in question 1 is basically determine what the other angles are. I've already done the 30 ones for you. You can grab them from the above example. But determine what they are for 45 and what they are for 60. And then what I want you to do is use all of that information to find out what the values are. Now let's show you how this would work. So the sine of 300. Now you would look here to find out which group matches the sine of 300. And I think you're going to find 300 would be a reference angle of 60 in quadrant 4. So I would put a reference angle of 60 here as my reference angle. I would circle the C for the cast rule because I'm in quadrant 4. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, the reference angle, the sine of 60, let's go find what the sine of 60 is. Here it is, the square root of 3 over 2. So I now know my answer is the square root of 3 over 2. And the cast rule tells me that cosine would be negative, but this is a sine value. So my answer would be negative square root 3 over 2. So first, the reference angle told me what to look up in the chart. The cast rule told me whether it was positive or negative, and it goes like that. Maybe I better do one more. Cosine of 240. I think we're going to find that the cosine of 240 is a quadrant 3 location, and its reference angle would be a 60. So again, I'm interested in now the cosine of 60. So I would go up and find the cosine of 60, which is 1/2. And now I know my answer is 1/2. What I need to verify, is it positive 1/2 or negative 1/2? And so 240 is in quadrant 3 where tangent is positive. This is cosine. So my answer would be negative 1/2. What I'm doing is I'm using the cast rule to determine positive or negative. I'm using a reference angle to obtain the value at that point. And then I'm putting all of that together to obtaining my answer. do your best to fill these in. I'll talk more about it on Friday and kind of reteach this lesson. But once you're done these, jump onto the other thing and get it done. Have a good day, guys.